Just when I thought I was out, they pulled me back in.
You want to scream, but you can't. It feels like your eardrums are going to burst.
We are renegades, this means war. We are renegades, this means war. We are renegades, this means war.
Absolutely, absolutely. Was that going to be part of the evolution? Was it something you came up with, or something that Paul came up with, or the bookers, or how did that work?
At the time, Paul didn't even know I could talk.
Absolutely, 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 absolutely. That I know it's something that you've talked about a billion times before, but I have to ask it.
Mr. Sean Cunningham, like Mr. Sean Cunningham, like Mr. Sean Cunningham, Mr. Sean Cunningham, like saying.
I just want to say thanks. We had a blast.
Mr. Sean Cunningham, like
John Mooney here in the WWF Event Center, and welcome to Face to Face. In Studio A, these men are on a collision course, and coming up this Saturday, live at the burnt down abandoned shopping mall on the corner of Walnut and Cumming Street, these men will be coming face to face. But first of all, I want to hear everybody's experiences for WrestleMania. We were not together this year. Did you like how I sort of morphed my voice from Sean Mooney to Luke Force?
You know what? You're like the man of 1,000 voices. I can't believe the impressions you could do. This is outstanding. There's a whole side career for you on this.
I'm like the audio version of the Michael Jackson black or white video. I can shapeshift with my voice. It's really something.
It's really quite, yeah.
How I can go from Lord Alfred to Sean Mooney to Luke Force. Let's get into it, guys. WrestleMania. Do you want to talk about the pre-show? I actually did not see it. I know you two probably did.
Yeah, go ahead, Sean.
Those two matches could have really been on the show, although they weren't stretching for time at any point. I was really impressed.
Yeah, you know, I thought that both of those matches, they weren't throwaway matches. They were decent, forefront matches. And this year, with it being on the, air quotes, pre-show, with the network being so prominent now, it really wasn't even like a pre-show at all. It was more just a lead into the actual show. And I enjoyed them both. This year, watching WrestleMania, there's something about Mania in an outdoor arena during the daytime that gets me all pumped up. Those are some of my first memories of Mania from this year, was how interesting it was to see it in an outdoor arena.
I completely agree. I got to jump in and say I 100% back you on this. I am the guy that comes on here month after month, year after year, talking about how stale just the general product looks. It feels like it's looked the same for like 10 years. It just was a completely different experience, look, everything.
Totally. And the other part of it is when you're outdoor, the sound is not staying in. The sound is not bouncing off a wall and coming back. It's just going out into the open air. So they could have been crazy for every match, but on television, that unfortunately is not going to translate. I was just impressed with that crowd stayed pretty hot for 5 hours.
Yeah.
That's hard.
But I know Sham was definitely on the money when he said that Cesaro and Kidd would retain. And they did. So, again, I haven't seen this match yet, but people have been saying a lot of good things. Do I need to go and search this one out?
Oh, for sure. You know what? Kidd and Cesaro looked like stars in that match, and they were in against capable tag teams. I mean, the tag team division isn't, beefed up where you've got a lot of credible teams at the top of the mix. But despite that, Cesaro and Kidd worked well. They had some great spots, and they looked like stars in this match. I thought it was a good opener. Because, I always hate when Mania comes around and they just take a bunch of tag teams and throw them into a big mixing bowl and give you, a fatal four-way or some kind of elimination match. This year, they went with that format, but I think it paid off.
I thought it was a really strong. They did do a lot of crazy spots, but at least to Shan's point, they spent time on television making those four teams mean something, and that match, by the time you got to it, it actually did mean something. So good on WWE for doing that properly.
Okay, to keep the show moving here, let's move on to the Andre the Giant Battle Royal. I predicted the Big Show, and the Big Show won. I wish I didn't predict the Big Show. I wish the Big Show didn't win, but he did. Haven't seen the match. Heard it was better than your average Battle Royal, though.
It was, as far as a straight up battle royal, I think that they told a few good stories throughout it, and there were a lot of moments where you really didn't know what was going to happen. It wasn't overly predictable. It was kind of a B grade battle royal because you didn't have a lot of really, really big top guys in there that were going to make a difference coming out of it with the title. I don't think Big Show winning it was a bad thing, considering the wonderful story they told with Sandow and Miz, I think, became sort of the heart of that match. And even though Sandow or Mizdow, I guess, do we still call them Mizdow? No, they're not together. I don't know. But
they still
did on Monday.
Yeah.
I imagine that'll be until their feud's over, and then somebody's becoming something else. But that sort of was the heart of the match. And even though he didn't win, it was entertaining. I thought it was good for what it was. It wasn't too long. It wasn't too short.
Clearly, with the way the Big Show is booked the next night on Raw, the winner of the Battle Royal means absolutely nothing. That trophy should be replaced with a can of Diet Coke. It means nothing.
Well,
so that's fine. No, but my point is that's fine. That's not a rant or me being angry about it. I've accepted that Battle Royal, why I don't know, because it's the Andre the Giant thing, it should mean something. But it doesn't. Okay, no problem. Moving along. Now that we've come to the conclusion that it doesn't matter, don't you think it would have been a better finish for the live crowd and for pretty much everyone at home for Mizdow to win?
I thought so too, but I also think the reason they gave Big Show the win was I think it's more of a tribute. I think we're going to see less of Big Show.
Yeah, I got that feeling too, Sean. You kind of hit it on the head. It felt a little bit like a mini send-off. Like maybe this is Big Show's last Mania, or, as you said, maybe he is going to start working a more limited schedule. God knows he's gone an awfully long time for a guy of his size.
Anyways, let's not spend too much more time on the pre-show. Let's get into the card. Now, guys, one thing that has not been mentioned that I need to mention, and maybe I am on an island all by myself here, I thought that LL Cool J intro
was awesome.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Totally awesome. I was like screaming at my television watching that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I seriously thought, am I seriously the only one that thought this was good? First of all, from a production standpoint, this was like the next level up for WWE in terms of production. Shane, were you fast forwarding this, or did you get to see the LL intro to WrestleMania? I thought this was honestly one of the best WrestleMania intros ever.
It really was, and I was a little bit scratching my head when they first announced him as doing this sort of hosting the opener there. And he pulled it off. I mean, the guy, he seems tailor-made for it. I hope that they get him involved again, in some extent.
Basically the go-to guy to host all the big events these days.
He is right now. He's been hosting the Grammys for 6 years. He's all over, I don't remember which NCIS show, but I know one of them. Award shows and voiceovers and neat things like that. And if WWE can use him again, I think it'll be really fun.
Yeah, that was just great usage of a celebrity. It wasn't your typical, he never showed up in front of the live crowd, did he?
Nope.
And, I mean, you watch that and you're just thinking, why couldn't he, after the Mama Said Knock You Out album came out, why couldn't he have transitioned into wrestling? Because this guy had the size, he had the look, he had the promo, he had the cockiness, he had everything down. So it's like, man, LL really missed his calling. Yeah. So, anyways, getting into the show, this was the match that Shan was most excited about. I think from an in-ring standpoint, it's probably the match I was most excited about. I thought it would be the most exciting match on the show. What do you think? Was it the ladder match? Yes?
I would say right now, in a show that exceeded expectations, this one exceeded even my expectations for the match itself. It was exciting. It was well done. You throw a bunch of guys and a bunch of ladders together, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And sometimes it's just a confusing mess, and sometimes it's magic. And this, I thought, was magic. They had enough strong personalities and enough strong characters and enough strong styles and differentiated styles that you were able to see some really, really cool moments in it. And I won't, I'll let you guys, talk about some of your favorites before I throw in my favorite moment of that match. But it was fun. It was a little fiesta for the eyes, I thought.
Sean, you picked Luke Harper.
I picked Luke Harper thinking they were going a different direction. And
but you did bring up a good point. You said, okay, if Cena and Bryan are those champions and Lesnar is turning babyface and he retains, we need to have one heel champion. So in a sense, you were right, because they did have a heel champion by the end of the night.
It wasn't the one I picked.
No, but you brought up a good point. But yeah, Luke Harper, that didn't happen.
One of the other discussions we'd had, and I can't remember whether it was on or off the air, speaking of champions, was the idea of somebody in WWE is watching New Japan, clearly.
And his name is Daniel Bryan.
Yeah.
In what way? From a psychology standpoint?
From the let's elevate our titles.
Oh, for sure, for sure. I thought you were talking about this match with the whole trading of head.
Oh no, that too. That was probably the most awesome thing I've ever seen.
I almost said the trading of headaches. That too. that was straight out of the Ishii playbook, though. Come on.
Oh yeah, that was my thought as that match ended. I'm like, regardless of who wins this match, Dolph and Bryan are both going to have Excedrin headache number 2000 in the morning, because that was insane. It was like those little wind-up toys or whatever, that the bird that dips its face in the water or whatever. They had two of those banging into each other.
Drinking the water.
or the other thought that came to my head was Rock'em Sock'em Robots.
Yeah, exactly. What an outstanding match. So many good spots, and so many people looked good in it too. I mean, they really kind of shared the spotlight around throughout the match, so you were never completely sure. I mean, I'd picked Bryan, and I'd hoped for Bryan just because I thought the crowd will love it. It'll be great for Bryan to defend one of the lower titles where they aren't going to feel the need to pull it off him right away. But I think everybody looked good. I thought Stardust looked good. I thought Ambrose looked fantastic. Dolph obviously looked fantastic. Luke Harper did some great spots. That match is my match of the night, and that's not saying anything against the rest of the card, as we'll see as we go forward.
But for a match with such a goofy borderline, I wouldn't even say borderline, such a goofy comedy build, the match itself had an urgency that you don't see in these ladder matches very much. You know, these guys weren't just like slowly going up the ladder, looking over their shoulder. Okay, when's this guy going to knock me off? Like Dolph especially.
That was what made the match, it really ramped up as a viewer watching it, was seeing how fast both Bryan and Ziggler went up that ladder. I mean, Ziggler went up that ladder so fast that if the other guy had missed his cue, there would be no excuse for Ziggler not to have taken that belt. Like, he would have just had to take it because he'd be at the top all by himself. He sprinted up that ladder. I don't know how he didn't fall. So it was pretty amazing.
It just really dawned on me, you know, between that match and then the next match, the next night on Raw, the one thing in his game that I've always criticized was that he goes too fast, yes, but it's okay to go fast. But you have to be crisp. You can't be sloppy. There's nothing wrong with Tiger Mask going fast because that guy's like razor sharp with everything he does. There's nothing wrong with Ultimo Dragon going way too fast or Rey Mysterio going way too fast because those guys are so crisp with everything they do. For so long I felt Dolph went way too fast for his ability. Let's put it that way. But I feel like that has really been changed, and he really has got that crispness now to everything he does, and everything's looking good. He knows how to actually execute his finishers now. But yes, Daniel Bryan won, and both Shannon and I had predicted that one.
Yes.
I had predicted the New Day would win the titles, but I did it, you know, sort of tongue-in-cheek. But at the same time, that was my prediction. That did not happen.
No.
Please turn these guys heel. Why are they doing this to these guys? I feel so bad. They're sending them out there pretending that they're a babyface act, and the people are shitting on it, but they've not been given the green light to be heels. You know what I mean? It just is so uncomfortable. But anyway, let's move along. We'll follow that on future shows. So anyway, Bryan won. Again, great match. Dean Ambrose, harking back to the old CZW, John Moxley taking a powerbomb through a ladder.
Here's the thing. How he gets up and walks when these shows end, and even his matches on Raw and SmackDown, I don't know.
Moving along to the next match here. Randy Orton versus Seth Rollins, featuring one of the greatest finishes in history. The match itself, I would say, was probably about a 3.5 star, and I think that's fine for its position. You had predicted Randy. I had predicted Seth. I said it's time to start letting Seth get some clean wins over some top guys. You were right, Shotgun Shan. Sean, I don't remember. Did you predict Randy?
I picked Randy, saying he needed a win coming off the...
Right, so same thing as Shan.
Yeah.
He's just back. We got to build up Randy. And in hindsight, I think this was a pretty good idea because of what it builds going, forward. They absolutely nailed that finish. And you've never seen Randy Orton happier, if you notice at the end of that match. It was like he won a title.
It was one of those, like, this finish is either going to look awesome or it's going to be the ugliest finish in the history of WrestleMania. Like, those were the options.
Exactly. It could have gone completely wrong. Seth could have teetered off his back, or Randy could have not had the strength to lift him, the way that he did. And it was outstanding. I mean, do we need to describe this for the people that haven't seen it? Are we assuming that they've seen it?
We do, because I still am having arguments with people as to what happened. Some people say that Seth was like propelling himself. He was basically stepping on Randy's neck to shoot himself up, and he was going to shoot himself up really high and come down with like a super curb stomp. What I thought happened when I watched the replay was that he went to do the curb stomp, and Randy was so strong that he just pushed his head up, and it made Seth go flying in the air. Which one do you guys think happened? Shan, you go first.
I think the latter. I think it seemed like Randy was propelling him up. Again, that's a lot of pressure to put on your neck, but it was a great finish, and it was also one like you really can leave it up to interpretation. Exactly what happened here, regardless of what you think happened, the way it looked was outstanding. I mean, an RKO from that high up was outstanding.
Now, Sean, what do you think? Was this Randy Orton not having a stack of dimes neck, like Vince McMahon once said, or was this going to be a super curb stomp?
No, I think this was Randy proving he doesn't have a stack of dimes. I agree with both of you, because I think Randy went out there with personally, we've always heard the complaints about Randy. I think he went out there with a point to prove. And
you know what it did, before we move on, is it really took your attention off of Seth for a little while. You kind of, I'm watching it even then, I kind of forgot about Seth after that match. Oh, Seth got the RKO. He's out for the night. So it was a nice surprise when we got to see him a little later.
This was probably going to be the most polarizing match.
This is the one thing I have to bring up, and I have to bring it up in detail.
Uh-oh.
When you have a guy who the big attraction about this is that he has never wrestled in a WWE ring before. He has never been at a WrestleMania before. He was the one guy who held out. He's a huge legend. We want to bring him in. We want to make it special. We're going to make the fans happy, and we're going to make history. And you bring him out first in the daytime to a bit of music, and you have him stand there while the other guy comes out to a $200,000 entrance.
Hallelujah! Thank you.
With overdubbed by Arnold Schwarzenegger, with robots everywhere, and with army dudes, and with the guy's got a cybernetic skeleton over top of his costume. So everybody, when they talk about this match, is going to be like, "Oh yeah, did you see Triple H's entrance? Amazing! What the hell?"
And what did Sting get?
He got
something that didn't fit his character at all.
And my mouth,
the Triple H thing didn't either, but.
My mouth's just hanging open. I'm like, this is the most blatantly disrespectful thing they could have done, except for the way the rest of the match played out, which, as you said, it's polarizing. I'm on the one pole that's the unhappy pole. I don't want to step all over you guys by going ahead with this, but I'm just going to give my thoughts quickly, that I'm not a Sting fan. I wasn't a Sting fan, but I respect him, and I think he deserved better than the match he got. Not that the match itself was bad, but that they kind of had a bunch of legends that are 20 years in the can hobble out to ringside as though they're somehow badasses, and then bring in a bunch of other guys from another faction, most of which are actually just friends with guys from the other faction, and have them pretend that it's some great big showdown. It was sad, and it took so much away from Sting. Not even the fact that he lost, which still had me scratching my head. But it took so much away from what should have been a huge celebration of this guy that that's finally set foot in the WWE ring. What did you guys think?
I can't really add a lot to that, Shane, because I agree with 95% of what you said.
What about the other 5%? Come on!
Well, no, the other 5% I'm going to say, for a guy that hasn't wrestled a match in, close to a year longer, Sting looked pretty good. That's the 5% I'm going to give them credit for being able to do. But I mean, watching the NWO side, the Hall and Nash Hogan NWO side with Sting made no sense. If you were going to do that match, okay, not just the Triple H Sting match, then why didn't you do what ended up trending by the end of that match, which was NWO versus DX?
Sometimes you need to let the crowd decide whether it was a good match or not. And in this situation, listen to the crowd. The crowd was having a ball. They were loving it. I agree with you that it was completely illogical, all the stuff that happened. And you know what else that is, too? Is I think they really underestimated Sting. Because I think all of the in-ring stuff was fine. I don't think there was anything wrong with the wrestling in that match. I thought Sting looked a lot better than most people thought he would. I thought Triple H did a pretty good job, too, of just sort of being the heel that was sort of leading the match. And all the smoke and mirrors, I understand why they did it. I always expected it. What the smoke and mirrors that they chose, though, I really don't understand. And like you say, the NWO were Sting's biggest rivals. So I mean that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And the fact that everybody knows the Clique, we're just having some weird little performance here. This isn't actually anything to take seriously. It was almost like a weird house show angle. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, exactly. Like
Sean Waltman all of a sudden is enemies with Kevin Nash because they're on these two rival factions, and it's just like, I think it made the whole thing seem, it took everybody out of the match, but at the same time the crowd loved it, and I think the majority of just the casual fans, the nostalgic fans,
Yeah.
loved it. Now, hitting Sting with a sledgehammer for the finish, and then Sting being like, okay, no problem, and shaking his hand at the end.
How weird was that? How weird was that?
Yeah.
Look, guys, I just want to take a quick sidebar here because I don't know how many of you people read the transcript of the conference call that Vince gave the day after.
Yeah.
But Vince, there's a line in there that I still don't know how to take. It says Vince. I'm looking at the transcript right now. It says Vince said they brought Sting from obscurity to a major WWE attraction. What is this a shot at TNA, or is he trying to pretend that Sting wasn't a legend? What does that mean?
It's a shot at TNA.
I mean, listen to the commentary. Listen, I'll agree with you on this. The commentary for that match, F minus. It's terrible. Especially, this is the thing with that angle, is that Sting blatantly came out 1 week before on television and said, this isn't about WCW versus WWE. I'm not here to fight for WCW. His exact words were, that would be ridiculous. And then what happens on WrestleMania? Michael Cole and JBL and everybody, he's fighting for WCW. Like, they did not listen. They didn't listen to this guy.
Or they just changed the angle like the day before. Like, that's... Yeah.
I thought the commentary was so lame, and just like, who on earth thinks this is WCW versus WWF? Especially when Sting just came out and said it's not, and that's ridiculous. They didn't listen.
And regardless, I mean, who cares at this point anyway?
Who cares?
This is so far. I mean, it's fine for a little bit of nostalgia, but at least try to make it sensible, and they didn't even bother.
And because they were pushing that agenda, at the end of that, I did kind of feel like they just brought Sting in to say the final guy of WCW that we didn't get. We just crushed him.
Well, and then he comes out, to skip ahead, he made it sound like he's not done yet.
I will give the commentary an F minus. I'm going to give the match a B, and I know that you guys are going to rate that match much lower, but that's fine. Go ahead.
I'll be honest, I marked out during the match.
That's what I mean. It was a mark-out match. Now, anyway, let's get off this topic. We all agree that it was not the best booking. Not the best booking. AJ Lee and Paige defeated the Bella Twins. This was, of course, the popcorn match because people had to get popcorn, but I thought it was a pretty good match, really. I didn't think there was anything wrong with this match.
As Divas tag matches go, it was certainly better than most of what we see. And I think it was just the dynamic of the Bellas, who not great wrestlers, but work well together, and Paige and AJ are just awesome on their own, even better together. So I enjoyed it.
And Nikki is really improving. We do need to say that. We need to say that. So Sean, who did you think? You predicted Paige and AJ would go over, right?
I did. It feels nice to be right.
Right.
I actually thought at one point they were going to tease a split. That's the way they built most of that match.
I'm glad that they're not, because they've already done that angle. That would be one of those WWE things where you're just like slamming your head against a desk being like, I just watched this angle and you blew it off. You know, one of those moments?
Yes.
Like the guy in Sesame Street when he bangs his head on the piano. What was that guy's name?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I know.
It's one of those moments. Moments. Can we get some kind of a piano sound effect? Anyway. But again, this match, we don't need to spend any more time on it. And it's unfortunate that it was the match where everybody kind of went to the concession stand and all that stuff. But you gotta go sometimes, you know?
You gotta go to the bathroom.
Give Divas a chance, though, people. Now, next up, what an entrance for Rusev. Yeah. Oh, my God. It's not very often that an entrance for anybody, or anything on wrestling for that matter, puts, the goosebumps on your arm and everything. This did that. I was just sitting there with my mouth open. I can't even believe this intro.
It was awesome.
And I know Shan on the Go Home show there on the Super Show had said that the best thing to do for the crowd is to have the American go over the evil Russian character. And I said, Shan, if Rusev wins, they're going to cheer. And he sort of laughed and said, yeah, you're probably right. John Cena has this big patriotic Ronald Reagan bullshit video.
George Bush, the whole works.
And he comes out and they boo him out of the building.
Oh, and not only did they boo him out of the building, but because of the kids and because of the women who love him, they can't turn him. But the hardcore crowd just wants nothing to do with him. I don't know what else to say.
So the involvement of Lana, and obviously she threw her shoes into the ring and all this stuff. She got knocked off the apron. John Cena wins. Crowd boos. Then we saw the post-match angle, which I think a lot of people were getting a little bit, not only were confused by, but were getting a little worried by. That, of course, being maybe a possible tease of a Rusev-Lana breakup. The way I interpreted it, and I'll let you guys give your thoughts, she's now gone again, back to start, or continue filming the movie with Edge. and she's now gone back to do that. So the way I interpreted it is that this is just a way to write her off for a little while, that he's kicked her to the curb, and then she's going to come back, and she's going to show up at ringside one match, and he's going to be all like, get out of here, I kicked you out, and then, you know, he's going to like look like he's going to put his hands on her, and then somebody's going to try to be like, hey, don't touch a woman, and then she's going to, you know, slap the guy from behind or give him a crotch shot. I don't assume they're actually breaking these two up. I just think it's a way to, you know, get her back off TV for a while.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, I think that those two still have some work to do together before they split them. But I think the writing's on the wall that Vince wants Lana on her own, you know, to do more than just this, which is fine and warranted. I mean, she's done a lot with that character, and a lot more than I think most people would be able to. Go ahead, Sean.
And I also think Lana could be a benefit to somebody else who might need it. I'm not sure Rusev at this point. Rusev's going to go up the card, I think, still, and they might need to.
Not without her, he's not. Sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead.
I just think she might be better used for somebody else who needs it.
Absolutely disagree, 1,000%. If they are seriously considering that, and if you seriously think that's right, Sean, then I just don't know what to say. That's just sickening. Because it is absolutely not the time. If you think Rusev is going to keep going up the card without her, you're wrong. They are a great act, and when Shan says that they have a lot more work to do, I would say yes, you're right, about 10 years more. You're right. Why break them up? This is a great act. These acts don't come along all the time. Don't get cute. You don't have to overthink everything, you know?
That's true, you know, because we've seen that happen so much over the past couple of years with them splitting the Shield too early, splitting the Wyatts too early. This is another situation where they've got something gold, and I think they just need to generally overall start treating the things that they have with a bit more regard and a bit more reverence. I mean, we've seen them squander guys that really should have done more, should have and could have done more. This is something that let's hope they don't squander it. Although, you know, with them creating these little cracks in the unity there, I hope that this isn't a long, drawn-out build to them breaking up, and rather just a little bump that they get over and keep moving forward. Because I think they're fun together. I love them together.
Who is she going to be better with? Who is she going to give more to?
Well, I'm just saying. I think because she's so over as a heel, she could help move somebody else up the card too.
Rusev isn't there yet. He's not there yet. He is not as ready as you think he is.
And this is also kind of an important time because everything's shaken up now at the top. You know, we got Seth Rollins up there. Lesnar's gone. Roman, you know, smarter heads have prevailed on the Roman Reigns front, so he's, you know, moving back down. Other people are going to be moving up. We've got all these bigger, we've got all the secondary titles now being more prominent. So there's a lot of transition going on. I would hate to see Rusev get lost in the middle of that.
Yeah. Now let's move along to the next segment, which was, man, this was something, and it got a lot of attention. This was the best of Vince McMahon right here. I don't know who was behind this. I don't know who pitched him on this. I guarantee it probably wasn't him that just all of a sudden had this idea. I'm going to call Ronda Rousey. The biggest draw under Pacquiao and Floyd Mayweather, really.
Yeah, yeah.
She's the next step down. And listen, this girl is a huge wrestling fan. It was all over her face for this entire segment, and I heard some people bashing, being like, "Oh, her acting was so bad and stuff."
Oh no!
This is a girl that is a enormous mark of a wrestling fan.
4 horsewomen. It exists.
The 4 horsewomen. They were at ringside. Yep. But anyways, the cinematography for this segment, obviously Stephanie, for those who didn't see, Stephanie and Hunter came out. Everybody kind of thought, I certainly hope this isn't just to waste a bunch of time and that the guys are, relegated to the pre-show so that these guys can come out and just fuck around for 20 minutes.
Well, look, before we go too much further, I will say that I did have one apprehension about this, and that I do think it went too long. I think that it was an awesome bit, but since you brought it up, I do think it kind of stunk that people got pushed to the pre-show, and this angle went, I think, a bit too long, to the point that I felt like the main event rushed a little bit. But
it was 10 minutes.
Yeah, I know.
It was 10 minutes for a money angle that's setting up.
Well, here's the other thing. I thought they were stalling on purpose, waiting for the sun to go down.
If they're going to come out there and fuck around for 20 minutes, I agree with you. Yeah, they're wasting time, and those guys should have been on the show.
But they weren't.
When it's setting up Ronda Rousey and The Rock versus Triple H and Stephanie for next year's WrestleMania, you're not wasting time. The crowd was nuts. The crowd certainly wasn't thinking it was going too long.
I can't remember whether it was on the pre-show or very early in the main card. They did point out that she was there.
I would trade the heat that was in that building for 1 million tag matches, for 1 million battle royals. That was something you just don't get. That was white heat happening in that ring. And it was like a segment that I think people will remember forever when they think about WrestleMania. So I mean, I totally understand that those guys get gypped all the time when people come out there and screw around. And maybe, you know what, I'll give you this. Maybe Stephanie and Hunter could have cut their part before The Rock came out. Maybe you could cut that in half. Sorry, go ahead.
That's the half of that impending tag team match that I'm not as into, is the Triple H and Stephanie. They're fantastic heels and everything, but I've heard enough. I don't want to hear them anymore. So during that segment, I really was kind of rolling my eyes and going, God, just do what you have to do.
Bottom line is, people want to see Stephanie get her ass kicked by Ronda Rousey. Period. End of story. I mean, we're the first people to say, listen to the audience, Daniel Bryan.
Well, I know
listen to the audience that night.
Okay, cha-ching, 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 cha-ching. That's all that matters.
Yeah, and I don't mind. That's fine. That's what a business is.
Yeah.
And, you know, that match is going to be interesting from the standpoint, let's assume it happens. I mean, it's something's happening. We know that.
I wondered about Brooklyn.
You got to do it at Mania because you need the biggest things possible at WrestleMania next year.
They chanted, Ronda's going to kill you.
And, you know, you couldn't do the armbar on that night.
No.
The armbar has to happen in the match. And because of the fact that Ronda's fights usually don't go past about 14 seconds, and she just puts people in the armbar and the girls just tap out, you got to do something where that match is Stephanie running from Ronda anytime they're in the ring together.
And she has to tap the second it goes on.
And she has to tap the second, you know what I mean, before the pressure's even on.
Well, but here's the thing. I'm convinced that she will because even if Ronda doesn't intend to break it, she may. Referring to Stephanie's arm.
Yeah.
So anyway, this was, again, at the very least, it got a hell of a lot of attention, and the crowd was just banana, like Pat Patterson would say. Next match, over-delivered, actually, I think, but I might be alone. Undertaker versus Bray Wyatt. What'd you think? How did old Take look this year?
Loved this match. What do you
loved it? Okay, yes.
I loved it.
I was a little worried. I was like, oh, here we go.
Anybody who takes offense with this match, I would have to a long, in-depth discussion with them as to figure out why. Because, I mean, this was a situation where this could have been a disaster for everybody involved. I think my fear and a lot of people's fears were that Taker comes back looking as bad as he did last year, or worse. You know, the guy's getting older and he's a big guy. Big guys can't wrestle that long. And so my thought is that Taker comes in looking weak, still goes over Bray. Bray has to kind of struggle to carry him, looks bad in the process, and then loses. He looked about 5 years younger or 10 years younger than he did last year. But, you know, just the spring in his step and the performance that he put on, they had excellent chemistry together. Wyatt kicked out of the tombstone and held his own. And then, you know, he ends up losing. Well, the only guy who ever didn't lose was Brock. And, you know, I don't think Bray is pretending to be Brock, nor does Bray need to be Brock to be over. So.
And yeah, the match was fine. I was kind of expecting a little more smoke and mirrors, to be honest with you. I was expecting a little more magic. And if they are going to do the Sting match next year, then I'm fine with that. But at the same time, you need to do a lot of magic. I was hoping there'd be some kind of magic. I don't know what kind of magic I'm expecting in wrestling, but
Were you expecting Bray to reach down the back of his pants and pull out a slightly brown rabbit, or what was
something?
That?
I just thought they'd come up with some kind of, you know, magic spots.
Dude,
but it was kind of just a wrestling match, wasn't it? Sean, you've been kind of silent regarding our rundown. What did you think of this match?
I really like this, and I agree with everybody who said that Taker looked better than he did last year. Taker looks physically better even just coming to the ring.
I think he looked better than he has even the last few years, like just in terms of overall conditioning and everything.
Yeah, he looked a lot better. I think, here's the thing, the last couple of years, Taker was working with Shawn Michaels and Triple H and Brock, who can carry him. Undertaker knew that he had to be in shape. Not that Bray isn't awesome, because he is. But he had to do a little more work this year.
That's what I mean. And from that standpoint, you're absolutely right, because Bray doesn't have the big main event experience of a Triple H, or obviously of a Triple H, Shawn Michaels, or Brock Lesnar, or any of that, right? Main event time, and what a main event it was.
Well, can I bring up another point that I really enjoyed and nobody else brought up before we get to the main event quickly?
Go ahead.
The Daniel Bryan post-Intercontinental title run with Maria Menounos.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the cast of legends. That, to me, other than Ricky Steamboat appearing in his tights, was the best use of legends I've ever seen at a wrestling. The yes stuff was cheese.
Yeah.
But everything that got you there.
You know, though, I agree with Sean in that they took the time to kind of christen that belt, rechristen that belt, bring out people that really mattered, that held it, and put Daniel Bryan in that same group. And I think that if you're going to build that title and you're going to build this guy, and I think he should be built as their preeminent IC champion going forward.
And it's not like they do that for anyone else too. I will say that. It's not like they have Bret Hart and all these guys congratulate, Dolph or anyone else whenever they've won it. So
yeah, there's an investment there. So let's hope that means that they're really going to make Bryan's Intercontinental title reign mean something.
Okay, next is the main event. We had all kinds of speculation about this match, not just in terms of the outcome, who might be heel by the end of the match, who might be face by the end of the match, but also just, can Brock have a good match, or can he carry Roman, or can even Roman over-deliver in this match? And you know what, folks? That Samoan motherfucker did it. Both of them very good. I honestly almost like the Brock one better, just in terms of the drama. And we talked about the New Japan influence in the ladder match. Brock was channeling Ishii in a major way for this match. My God, was this a stiff encounter. Do you remember a world title match closing a WWE pay-per-view as anything like this? This was totally different than anything you see.
The only thing that's comparable, and it's not close, was the Cena Brock SummerSlam.
Yeah.
This was different. But I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. That was different too, and they definitely had some balls on that night. And I loved it. I loved the fact that they sort of threw out their traditional way of doing things and they went a totally different direction. And they did the same for this match. It started right away. Like, they just went right at it. Brock beat the hell out of Roman Reigns. I know that Paul Heyman has some influence in any Brock Lesnar match. He's able to creatively have some input on a lot of this stuff. And when I saw that the whole idea that they had for Roman was to send him out there and let Brock beat his ass and just legitimately take a beating from Brock as a way to sort of get the fans to respect him, I thought it was it just had Heyman's fingerprints all over it. But Shan, what'd you think of the match, my man?
It was the best they could have done in that situation. It was way better than what I thought they were going to do. And I think I'd said when we were talking about our predictions, I said the only way this is going to go over is if Brock just throws Roman around for the majority of the match. And that's exactly what they did. It didn't come down to, is Roman championship material? Can he beat Brock? Can he put on a great match and show the fans he was wrong? It was, can Roman hold on? Can Roman survive? And he did. And you know what? I think the crowd couldn't get on him the way they would have gone on him otherwise. They turned on him a few times whenever he had his little bursts. But overall, I think people did kind of see that they weren't presenting him the way that they had presented him up until that point. They weren't presenting him as the new chosen one. He was just a guy in there trying not to get killed by Brock Lesnar. And overall, I think the match was great. I think the overall outcome of the match was great. I think they looked at what they had, finally, objectively, looked at the situation they had, the personalities involved, and the mixture of elements they had, and said, what's the best we can do with this? And I think that they delivered the best they could have with what they had.
I think that, they really just showed the crowd, hate this guy all you want. There's nothing fake about this. There's nothing fake about what is happening to this guy. He's getting his face pounded in. He's getting clothesline. That clothesline, the slingshot clothesline.
Oh my God.
Jesus. They made the crowd respect the fact that, okay, love him or hate him, this guy is tough, and he keeps getting up, and Brock is hurting him. And then anytime Roman got his little flurries, it wasn't some, little sissy slaps. Roman was fighting back. He was giving it back to Brock. And that was what really made Roman Reigns in that match, was the fact that when he did get on the offense, he was hitting Brock just as hard as Brock was hitting him. And he hit him with that big knee right in the mouth. Certainly Brock looked a lot worse at the end of that match than Roman Reigns did. The post spot, was that hard way, or was that a blade job, in your opinion? Now, blades are obviously something the WWE has banned for many years now. So what do you guys think? What do you guys think about that spot? And did it shock you as much as it did me? And did it look like hard way, or did it look like a blade, the way he was bleeding?
The thing is, as I watched that match, Brock was bleeding early on from a whole bunch of cuts already. He had ones over his eye, he had ones on his mouth, he had I'm not sure what they came from, because this was really early on. So he was busted up already. By the time he took that spot into the post and was bleeding everywhere, it didn't even occur to me that it was anything but hard way. I just figured these two guys were just killing each other, getting a little bit out of control, and somebody got split.
Yeah, right on the hairline.
Yeah, looking at the video, that video in question afterwards, it's not so much that I'm saying, yeah, it was a blade, but all I can think is, if it wasn't, what was it? What was happening there? It's very strange.
Well, the only thing that makes it convincing that it was a blade was the idea that it was right on his hairline.
Well, and the fact that Hardway doesn't usually bleed right away like that. You know, there was something that was a little bit suspicious about how it almost seemed like he was bleeding by the time he hit the post. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Now, again, who knows? Who knows either way? WWE's come out and they've said no, that intentional blood is not allowed here and blah, blah, blah. But just from you guys, like, when you first saw it, was your first thought, yeah, like Hardway, these guys are just going like Brock, the guy goes full steam ahead with everything he does, and in that match, it was like the perfect example of it. Everything he did was without reservation, not caring about the outcome. At least that's the way it comes across on TV. Maybe he's 100% taking care of Reigns, but the way it looks on camera is that he forgot it's a work, and this guy's just in animal mode. And we saw a lot of that in the 24 hours there. But at the end of the day, Sean, your thoughts on this match and obviously the outcome?
Well, okay. I'm going to bring up 3 points. First of all, there was a point about halfway through the match where the crowd did actually stop booing Roman and started to feel sorry for him.
Yeah.
Because he was getting beat on so bad.
That's what I mean. The sympathy. Regarding this, Shan, the outcome, you had sort of suggested this and you got your wish. You said that, it's all good to build around Brock and it's all good to really get the most you can out of him as a babyface, but not as champion right now. So you got your wish, and when you were watching it, what did you think was going to happen? Did you feel it coming, or did it completely surprise you?
I'd forgotten about Seth, so I didn't see it coming, even though we talked about it before. I just figured that the Seth Orton match was so strong that was probably the last we were going to see of him, and I kind of got the feeling that either they're going to... I was still anticipating this switchover of Brock coming out the face and Roman coming out the heel, and so I didn't really see it coming, and when I did, I marked out, I have to say. Even more so seeing Seth win it. It was exactly the way to do it. I think Mania should always either end with a huge, huge babyface win with the guy that everybody wants winning, or it should end with something shocking and something for you to talk about the next night on Raw. Which, for whatever reason, the ratings the next night were out of the ballpark.
Yeah.
And I think that Seth winning had something to do with that. Not all of it, but I think that transition, that change, and that opening up of a whole new sort of storyline, I think that should take a bit of credit.
Well, you can also give some credit to that boring 10-minute segment. But anyways,
everybody on Sunday night treated that show the way that show should be treated. Yeah. That show is supposed to be the pinnacle, the it. That is how every guy who got out in that ring treated that show on Sunday night.
People are hearing, WrestleMania happened last night, and this happened, this happened, this happened, this happened, and this happened. It's not just, WrestleMania happened last night, Roman Reigns won, and, crowd was kind of cold, and then the show went off the air, and it was just kind of one of those weird deflating feelings, and Ernest Matthews fell asleep on the couch. You know what I mean? One of those... Yeah. It wasn't that kind of show. It was a show where at the end of the when the logo came up at the end, you got all these things you want to talk to your friends about. That's what wrestling's supposed to be. That's what WrestleMania is supposed to be. And for anybody that was thinking, oh yeah, the IWC, they were shatting on this show for months and months, but end of the day, they were saying, oh, WrestleMania might even suck this year. Roman Reigns isn't ready. End of the day, it was a great show. The network is up to 1.3. They did a 5-point this. This is my counter to that. The IWC now stands for Influencing Wrestling Culture. You can thank the fans for this, because guess what? At the end of the day, they were fighting for something better. They wanted something better. They do love your company, and they want to enjoy it. And at the end of the day, they influenced something else, because otherwise Roman Reigns would have won. If the fans had just been, sitting idly by and just been like, okay, nothing we can do about it. This is the new guy. He would be world champion right now. Don't fool yourself. There was just no way you could do it. He was completely just a flop heading into this show. And now I think it's the best thing for Roman. He really proved in that match that he can hang in the top mix. And now it's the time when you can just chill out and just start slow, and hopefully the fans will get off his back soon. Like, I'm starting to get a little pissed about it. It's like, just get off the guy's back now, okay? WrestleMania is over. The next night they did not get off his back. But
that Raw after WrestleMania crowd is always...
You're right.
That is almost the hardest crowd, harder than Mania to be in front of.
It'll take time, too, because people kind of are going to have to adjust to where Roman Reigns is now. My assumption is they're going forward with Seth and Randy, which will be really good for Reigns to just be taken out of that mix entirely. I think it would have been bad for him to throw him right in against Seth Rollins while Lesnar's away, because I think the fans would have turned on him then, and it would have been bad for Seth too, getting probably more cheers than Roman. So I think the crowd will eventually ease off on him. They need to give him a good program where he can show a bit more of what he showed at Mania.
So you know what? You did it, folks. You didn't want Roman Reigns as the top guy. You didn't think he was ready right now. And if it wasn't for you, he would be the guy right now. And I think what we got is much better, and I think it sets Roman Reigns up for something much better. So as long as you're not just fighting for the destruction of the company, and you're actually fighting for the better of the company, at least what you think, then voice your opinion, because I can guarantee you your voices have been heard this time.
Look, I think what I went through in the weeks and months leading up to this. I was on a complete boycott, not spending any money on WWE products, finding other ways to get to watch the programming. And really what I was calling for is this. Now, let's hope that this wasn't just a momentary blip. Here I am now back in that, back involved in and invested in the product again. So let's hope that this is really, really what it seems to be, which is a new direction and them moving forward with the right guys. Because if you were just to look at WrestleMania as what it was, as a stepping stone forward, I don't think one person came out of that show in a worse position than they did going in. I think everybody came out in a more favorable position. Roman, with the pressure off him and having performed well. Brock, just, the crowd going crazy for him. Seth finally gets to be the Weasley, and you couldn't get a more Weasley heel champ either.
No, he does that great. You're right.
Oh, he's going to be a fantastic Weasley heel champ. You've got Bryan with gold and being anointed as a classic IC champion. You've got Cena, elevating the U.S. I think everybody that wrestled looked good. So this is a great time to hit the reset button and say, yeah, the product wasn't good for a long time. It disappointed a lot of people. Here's where we move forward in a positive way. So let's hope that's what's happening.
Is anybody else as excited as I am for what's going to happen for the next 6 months?
No, they've set up a lot of really fun stuff.
Me too. As I said, they've blown the door open with a whole new group of matchups and different focus now. And not just focus all around a world title, but focus around all the titles. So I am really excited.
Now, getting into Raw, obviously a killer couple, actually. 2 really great segments involving Brock Lesnar. We saw the opening one. And this was something that I started to think about as WrestleMania sort of really came down to the 11th hour. And I started to think about this whole thing that we've all been pushing for. Paul Heyman and turning on Brock and all this stuff going forward. And Brock's going to be the baby face fighting against Heyman and someone else. And I started to really regret ever saying that. I started to panic. And I started to think, wait a minute. This is not the right thing. Much like the Lana and Rusev thing. It's not the right thing to do. Because Brock is not going to be as good on his own, having to talk for himself. And also, here's the other thing that people haven't brought up. When you have this situation, even the one that spilled out onto Monday, you can kind of play that thing of Brock's a bit of an asshole. He doesn't want to come back. But when he's a babyface, why is he not coming back? How do we explain why he's off TV all the time? It's so much easier to do when you have Paul Heyman out there doing what he's doing. And I kind of said to Shan, like on our show, and maybe I said it to you, Sean, with Brock, there's really nothing you need to do for him to be the babyface now. And in fact, they did it on Monday. They didn't change a single thing. And he was the biggest babyface in the company.
Because Stephanie suspended him.
Right. But everything about Brock was just the exact same as it's always been. It wasn't any kind of split from Heyman. It wasn't nothing changed with Heyman. They were just exactly the same, but the fans treated them like the biggest babyface act. And then when you saw that segment with Brock, in the after the first hour,
the beauty of this, too, with Brock being the character that he is, and with the suspension being indefinite, you really never know when he's going to come back, and they can get mileage out of the fact that Brock Lesnar could be in the building at any given time. And then, they can still keep Brock on his limited schedule. And when they finally do bring him in, people are going to go berserk. So I think it was a great move. And as I agree with you, this is an organically grown Stone Cold type character, and they've been looking for that for a long time.
And Paul Heyman, it's like, as much as we can sit here and say one of the greatest heel managers ever, one of the greatest managers, one of the greatest talkers ever, let's just face facts. The people love him. They love him because he's so good at what he does.
Okay,
so the idea of him being a babyface manager for Brock, it totally works because the fans don't really necessarily want to boo him anyway.
They boo him because he says things to make them boo for 5 minutes. Because the fans know they're supposed to boo. But in reality, every time he walks it with a microphone, they pop.
Right. And you could easily spin that into, instead of him insulting the crowd, he's doing what he did on Monday, just saying things to get them excited and pump them up, which is what he did.
Now, is he going to stay, or are we going to see him do like he did last time, where he manages other guys for a while and then Brock comes back?
Absolutely no idea. No idea whatsoever. And of course there's things, and I honestly truly was thinking of this too, that segment, the one that everyone's talking about, where he F5'd Michael Cole and he lost his mind and he got the Ken Shamrock look in his eyes. Obviously, there's things he can tear apart, like the table being tipped over and JBL and Booker, two wrestlers, are treating it like a transport truck, just like fell on top of them. The one thing I will totally shit on is the fact that originally what they had said on Raw was that Michael Cole suffered a cervical fracture. They basically used the exact language from the Perro Aguayo autopsy. And I mean, the guy's been in the ground for like days, and they've never said cervical fracture on WWE TV ever, have they? Does anyone remember them ever saying that?
No.
And 9 days after he dies, from that injury, they're using that in an angle. They've now changed it to a bulging disc. It went from a cervical fracture to a bulging disc. So Michael Cole just suffering a bulging disc, and he will be back on Raw, and the commentators will be back on Raw, and that's what they're saying. They'll be back on Monday. This is probably another one of those things where I'm on my own. But to me, if it was a shoot, and the commentators all got laid out, and Byron Saxton came out there, should he be coming out there all bombastic and, hey, guys, how you doing? I'm Byron Saxton, and here we are in the WWE Raw.
No, he should
Or should he be coming out there kind of scrambling, kind of nervous, because, again, he's just thinking he's sitting in the back tonight, and all of a sudden he's now commentating Raw alone. And he came out there and he stumbled and he stammered and he acted nervous and he talked quietly and everything. I actually thought, from a realistic standpoint, it was perfect. But everybody was shitting on it, and it seems like nobody, if that was the intention from WWE, I think it was really brilliant. Unfortunately, nobody got it. What did you guys think?
I agree.
Yeah, I agree too. I mean, I was a little taken aback for a moment, but then I kind of thought, well, he does seem like a guy that's just been thrown in without preparation. So I had no problem with it. I did notice it, but I didn't have a problem with it.
Yeah, it was certainly jarring. Like, it was certainly different, you know? I thought there were, like, a whole bunch of great things on this Raw show until the last hour. Obviously, the main event was, I don't know what they were thinking with that main event in front of that crowd. They should have known it would be eaten alive. It was.
And it was.
But everything else, like, you had, obviously opening it up with the Bryan and Dolph match, and for just their first, match of this series. Yeah, it should have been on the pay-per-view, but I mean, still, it was the Raw after Mania, and they were just in there killing it. These guys have a unbelievable chemistry. Would you not agree, Shan?
I would. That's the kind of the match I wanted to see at Mania. I'm glad that they didn't go that route and that they did what they did because it worked out so well. But my hope is that, it is a long, drawn-out feud. I was a bit concerned when Sheamus made his return during that match and Barrett was jumping in and laying people out, thinking, oh, God, I hope this isn't what they're going to do now and send Bryan in against a returning Sheamus. But it certainly looks like they're going to continue the Ziggler feud, and nothing bad will come out of that.
And what'd you think of the look?
The Sheamus look?
Yeah.
It's good. I mean, why not? If you're going to bring him back, and he needed a makeover. If you're going to bring him back like that. He's insane looking. It helps the heel aspect of him immediately. So I'm fine with it.
I was going to say, are Sheamus and Barrett going to be effective?
Don't know. They could. They are.
That
good.
would be very interesting.
I'd love to see eventually them do some kind of a European, faction. But nonetheless, there were a few debuts on this show. First one being Kalisto, second one being Pac, and I would think that both of you would agree with this statement. I think they blew a lot of minds on Monday night.
I think a couple of those guys cemented their spots right there. I think Kalisto certainly has slipped into the void left by Rey Mysterio. Not that Rey had been wrestling, but with the realization that he's gone now, I think he impressed a lot of people, and I think he probably excited the crowd, especially those that weren't that familiar with him. And Neville, my goodness, I was so worried when he was making his debut, we were going to see him come out with some Mickey Mouse ears on, and it didn't happen, so thank God.
I would say this is the one time, too, in WWE history when the dropping of the first name actually makes him a little cooler. Yeah. I think it sounds cooler, Neville, than Adrian Neville, especially because everyone always says Aaron Neville anyway.
That's true.
So what'd you think of their debuts, Sean?
I don't even know how to explain what I saw in 48 hours. The complete turnaround from the company, and that's all my mind is completely blown.
And obviously, I mean, perfect crowd to debut those two guys in front of. The thing is, where do they go now? Where does Lucha Dragons go now? Do they become Los Matadores? Where does Neville go now within a few weeks? What do they have really in place for them? My God, they could have such an unbelievable cruiserweight division, such an unbelievable light heavyweight division right now. You look at the guys that are on this roster, it's just unbelievable. Like, I can't even wrap my head around why they're not doing that, because all these guys are going to flounder on the main roster. Guys come in the first week or two, they wrestle their little exhibition matches, they impress, but then where are we going with them? We don't really have anything for them. But they're so talented, you're right. They could definitely break through that. The Dean Ambrose-John Cena match, those two guys went out there and worked their asses off, and I thought it was pretty cool that, they let Ambrose kick out of the attitude adjustment. I've heard they have big plans for him this summer. I'm assuming he's going to be challenging Seth Rollins for the title, maybe at SummerSlam.
I've been impressed by Dean Ambrose almost since the day he came in, so the fact that they were able to do what both those guys did the night before and then come back Monday night and do what they did.
And John Cena stealing Jay Lethal's lethal injection. By the end of that match, you could tell they were a little uncomfortable with hating Cena after he just had such a great match and worked so hard,
Exactly. And that's the thing I'm starting to really enjoy about the crowd. It's not just a hostile crowd. They seem to be able to more or less, be able to recognize when they've seen something that's good, a significant change. So I get excited about that.
And for the next pay-per-view, Extreme Rules, looks like we got Randy versus Seth for the title. And they're going to do Rusev Cena again. So that feud is not ending. So that's good. I would keep that one going for a while too. I just don't know where you go without Lana, and again, this sort of brings me back to the little argument me and Sean had.
Doesn't it feel like we've been suffering through this forever? And I mean, God, I'm sure I can find a point on the calendar where I was happy with what was going on, but I don't think as happy as this. So awesome.
Anything else you want to say at this point, Sean, about Raw or WrestleMania?
I'm literally gonna have to go back and at some point at the end of this week and rewatch some of it.
It feels like every year we're like, maybe this is the year where so-and-so comes down and cashes in at the end of WrestleMania. We've been saying that for how many years now?
At least 5 or 6.
At least 5 or 6. And this was the year they did it, and this was the year I really had kind of forgotten about it. I really wasn't thinking about it in that final moment. Again, like Shan says, I was looking for the double turn. I was looking for this, looking for that. And in the end, I think they did something better. So here we go. Let's see where it goes from here. So for myself, Shotgun Shan, Sean Cunningham, promotional consideration paid for by the following, and peace, love, Sean Mooney. Tell him the rest.
Wrestling Audio Revolution.
Just when I thought I was out, they pulled me back in.